Good day, everyone. My name is Lenarica Rica Loveta, and I will be the one to present the topic about the ASEAN Australia New Zealand Free Trade Area. So, let's get started. Just to give you a quick overview of the AANZFTA, or the ASEAN Australia New Zealand Free Trade Area. So this is an agreement which comprises the framework agreement between the ASEAN and the Australia and the New Zealand. So this is also the basis for the member countries that is contained on the legal text that sets out the obligations and the commitments of the parties of the agreement. So this framework agreement consists of countries between the ASEAN members, which is the 10 member states, the Brunei, Darussalam, the Cambodia, the Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Then, together with Australia and the New Zealand. So that comprises the trade agreement between the ASEAN, the Australia, and the New Zealand. So the AANZFTA is an agreement that is established as it represents the comprehensive agreement that will deepen the economic integration by providing a more liberal, facilitative, and transparent market and investment regimes among the 12 signatories of this agreement. So in the next slide, as you can see here, that the agreement composes of 12 countries that consists of ASEAN with 10 member countries and additional 2 countries, which is the Australia and the New Zealand. So upon establishing the AANZFTA, so this framework agreement was signed on February 27 of 2009 at the Chiang Phetchaburi in Thailand. So this agreement was signed among 12 nation countries of signatories. Then it was entered into force on January 1 of 2010, and on the year 2020 is the full implementation of the legal frameworks of the AANZFTA. So on the next slide, it represents the different coverages including in the framework agreement of the AANZFTA. So first is the trade in goods. So this includes in the agreement the elimination and reduction of the customs duties and also the acceleration of the tariff commitments. So second is the rules of origin, whether the commitments of between the nations that talks about the how they do the ruling of the rules of origin in terms of the goods wholly obtained or in substantial transformation, the circulation of the calculation of the original value content, and also the operational certification procedures. Then in terms of the customs procedures, that includes the evaluation, the advance rulings, the risk management, the classification, the review and appeal. Then it also includes the coverage for the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, then the standards technical regulations, the conformity assessment procedures, the safeguard measures that talks about the imposition of the safeguard measures of especially agricultural products. The next is the movement of the natural persons, then the electronic commerce, the investments, then the economic cooperation, and it is also included that the intellectual property, the competition, consultation, as well as the dispute settlement. So through the ASEAN Australia New Zealand Free Trade Area, so first, the tariffs will be progressively reduced and eliminated for at least 90%. So this 90% tariff reduction will be applicable to all tariff lines as being stated in the HS code, and also this agreement will be specified within specific timelines of each member nations. There will be an instances that the developing countries must have its imposition of the tariff reduction before, rather than the developing countries, that these nations are being able to adapt the agreement in terms of the reduction of the tariffs. So there will be a consideration in terms of the developing countries. So next, the movement of a modern and flexible rules of origin, the simplified customs procedures, and transparent mechanisms. So in terms of the movement of goods, so this is being more facilitated in terms of this between the nation countries, such as the ASEAN countries, the Australia and the New Zealand. Then there will be a more flexible rules of origin, then simplified modern customs procedures to be implemented, and there are also instances that these nations have more transparent mechanisms and procedures in terms of the trade and commerce. The next, facilitations to the movement of business persons that engage in trade and investment activities. So in terms of this talks about more of the investments of countries, of members of these countries, of this AANZFTA. So next is the barriers to trade in services will be progressively liberalized. So in terms of the barriers, is this agreement will lessen that kind of barrier that stipulated in this agreement, as the trade and services will be progressively liberalized. In terms of this, that the nations may be allowed for a greater market and to have an access to services of the suppliers in the region. Then lastly, the covered investments will be accorded a range of protection. So this includes the possibility of dealing with disputes via an investor or state dispute settlement mechanisms. So the overview of this tariff commitment. So each party shall progressively reduce and or eliminate customs duties on originating goods and other parties in accordance with its schedule of tariff commitments in Annex 1 of this agreement. So this agreement mostly focus of the agreements of the nations in terms of the elimination or the gradual elimination of the tariff, and also to eliminate the cost, and also resulting to eliminate the customs duties. So this agreement also includes that the commitments for the high tariffs, a high level of tariff elimination will be achieved according to timeline, which is this agreement constitutes of the schedules of timelines that each country must have to abide in order for them to also adopt the agreement of this AANZFTA. So commonly the timeline of this tariff commitment must be seen on the annexes of this framework agreement of the AANZFTA. So this tariff commitment also set out tariff schedules that annex to the agreement. So more likely that the least developed country parties have a more longer transition period in which they have to adapt in terms of reducing or eliminating the tariffs. So just to give you an overview of what would be the idea and what would be the figures of the tariff commitments as stated on the annexes of the AANZFTA. So in this slide contains the sample of the Annex 1, which is the schedule of the tariff commitments that composes of the Chapter 1 of the AHTN. So as you can see here, so the description of the commodity, which is the live horses, asses, mules, and hinnies, for the horses of pure breeding animals. So there are succeeding tariff commitments of 0% from 2012 up until 2020 and to the subsequent years. So as you can see here, so most of the commodities in terms of some commodities that is fully obtained or produced have a tariff schedule commitments of 0% in each year starting from 2012 up to 2020. Then another thing here is there are some cases that some agricultural and animal products that is wholly obtained consist of 20% of tariff in 2012, then gradually decreasing from 20% up until 18% on year 2013, then nag-decrease na naman of 3% as in 2014 year have 15% of tariff. Then 2015 there is a 13% of tariff. Then 2016 10% hanggang sa 2020 nagiging 0 na lang siya. So this is also an example for you to discover and also for you to know about the instances of what will be the tariff commitments and the scheduling of the tariff reduction and elimination of all tariff products as stated in the AHTN. So in this slide contains of the special executive orders of the AANZFTA. So since the Philippines is a member of the ASEAN, and the ASEAN also being member of different bilateral agreements in terms of the preferential tariff commitments and agreements, so the Philippines imposed a executive order which being authorized by the President that contains the Executive Order number 191, the modifying the rates of duty on certain agricultural products under the Executive Order number 851 series of 2009 in order to implement the Philippine, ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Area tariff commitments relating to the WTO decision on waiver relating to the special treatment of rice of the Philippines. So considering that the rice is the highly sensitive product and an agricultural product, so this executive order being issued and being approved by the administration of Benigno Aquino III, as the Philippine government secured the special treatment for the rice under the Article 4.2 and Section B of the Annex 5 of the AANZFTA Agreement which this contains the temporary permitted to the country to impose the quantitative restrictions of the importations of rice. Then, the special treatment is restrained upon up until 30 June of 2017 by the virtue of the WTO decision on waiver relating to special treatment of rice in the Philippines. Another executive order is being issued by the administration under the Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. So the executive order number 851 that states the modifying rates of the certain duties of imported articles as provided under the Tariff and Customs Code of 1978 in order to implement the commitments on trade in goods of the agreement establishing the AANZFTA. So this executive order provides the Philippine schedules of tariff commitments from the year 2010 up until 2020. So this free trade area agreement take effect on the 1 of January of every year. So this consists of the following. So this executive order consists that for Australia, New Zealand, and the ASEAN 9, so the applicable rate shall be the AANZFTA preferential tariff, and this must be subject to the submission of the certificate of origin with the attachment of the form AANZ. Then it also states here that all articles listed in the annex which are entered or withdrawn from the warehouses of the Philippines for consumption, so this will be imposed the rates of duty therein as prescribed, as subject to compliance with the rules of origin as provided in the chapter 3 of the AANZFTA agreement. So the AANZFTA has two programs in terms of the tariff reduction. So first is the normal track and the second one is the sensitive track. So the normal track is being considered in terms of the goods that is industrial or not agricultural products. So the AANZ tariff will be have the tariff reduction in terms of having tariffs of 0% by the year 2015. Then for the sensitive track, which included the sensitive and highly sensitive products, which composes of agricultural products, that it is included in the chapter 1 up to chapter 25 of the AHTN. So for the sensitive list, there will be a tariff of 0% to 5% by the year 2020, and then highly sensitive list 20% by the year 2020. So in this case, so as you can see that the year 2020 will be the date and the year of the full implementation of the AANZFTA tariff reductions. So about talking about the preferential tariff agreement in terms of the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand free trade area. So in terms of the availment of this preferential tariff, so what will be the conditions for every nations that they will be availing the preferential tariff of this certain agreement? So the ASEAN member countries, the Australia and the New Zealand, will be benefited for the preferential tariff rates by providing and following these three conditions. First, the imported products must be accompanied by the CO form, the certificate of origin form, which is the form AANZ, which entails to the specified form for the AANZ agreement. The next is the goods shall fall within the description of the products that is eligible for the concessions in the importing party. Then lastly, the the member also comply with all the relevant provisions of Chapter 3, which discussed about the rules of origin of the agreement. So, for instance, the New Zealand wanted to avail the preferential tariff agreement to the Philippines, since the New Zealand is exporting an amount of wines to the Philippines. So in terms of availment of the preferential tariff, so the New Zealand has to secure the certificate of origin, which is indicated in the form AANZ, which this form is intended for the member states that agrees or members of the AANZFTA agreement. So in terms of the issuance of the certificate of origin form AANZ, so the New Zealand has to secure this on their government agency, which is the New Zealand Customs Service, as they will be the one who will be issuing this, because this is also required for the certificate of proof that the products from the New Zealand are wholly obtained or substantially wholly obtained, or maybe may attain the RVC, or the original value content, as stated on the AANZFTA, which is the RVC 40%. So in terms of the original criteria of the AANZFTA in terms of preferential tariffs, so there must be a consideration in terms of the conditions of the originating of the goods. So this must comply with the relevant provisions of the Chapter 3, which is the rules of origin. So there are two origin criteria to be assessed. So first, it has to identify whether the goods is wholly obtained or produced, as this will satisfy the Article 2.1, which is the originating of the goods of the Chapter 3, the rules of origin. So we have to evaluate that the product itself is wholly obtained or originating, or wholly obtained or produced. Then second is the goods that is produced entirely satisfying the Article 2.1, which is producing a party exclusive from originating materials from one or more of the parties of a Chapter 3, the rules of origin. So more of this origin criteria explains that the goods contains a one or more products that is combined into one, but the goods are also originating from the member parties of this agreement, which is some of the articles or the materials are from Malaysia, from Thailand, Singapore, that is formulated into one product. So that will be also considered to have its origin criteria. Another thing for the consideration of the origin criteria of the goods is when the goods are not wholly obtained or produced. So this must also consider the origin of the criteria when the goods are not wholly obtained, so it considered to have a substantial transformation of the goods, and also must meet the product specific requirements as being stated in the AANZFTA agreement. So first, there must be a change in tariff classification at the 4-digit level of the HS code, which is the change of tariff classification. So next, the original value content, or the RVC, of 40%. So in this case, So the goods must have to consider that the originating goods must adhere to have a 40% or more of its value. The next is a regional value content plus the change in tariff classification, which is the RVC plus CTC. Then next is other, including specific manufacturing or processing operations, or PSR, or other requirements that is included under these specific manufacturing or processing operations. So this origin criteria is also indicated on the form CO AANZ. So for the special and the differential treatment under AANZFTA, so this framework agreement provides for a special and differential treatment to ASEAN in terms of the recognition of the different levels of the development among the ASEAN member states and between the ASEAN member states, Australia and New Zealand. So for the trading goods, so there must be a tariff reduction and elimination schedules which are differentiated between the ASEAN 6, which is Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand, which these ASEAN 6 are composed of the developed and developing countries. Then the newer ASEAN member states, which is the Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam, or the ASEAN 4, which comprises the newer states, members of the ASEAN, and also considered to be the least developing countries of the ASEAN members. So there must be a consideration between them, because there must have to have the trading goods in terms of first the coverage at the entry into first force, which is comprises of the different timelines of the coverage of the tariffs, and also the different timelines and the dates of the entry into force. Then second, phasing of the tariff reduction, which is the stages where the member countries were gradually adapting the progress reduction and elimination of the tariff. Then last is the final elimination timeline. Then for the Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam, which is the ASEAN 4, these least developed countries enjoy more gradual planning of phasing and longer gestation of the elimination of the tariffs. So in terms naman for the trade and services, so the parties, they recognize the importance of the special and differential treatment to Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam, which is the ASEAN 4, through a negotiated commitments relating to first, strengthen domestic capacity. So second, improve access to distribution channels and information networks. Then third is the commitment in sectors of exports to these four countries. So in terms of this differences between the nations, so the least developed countries are the least developing countries are more given into consideration, because this AANZFTA provides different commitments and programs that enable them to provide for economic development, and also in terms of the progression of the countries in terms of the trades, in terms of the trade and commerce. So in the recognition of the differences of these nations, so the AANZFTA also provides economic cooperation between these parties through the Economic Cooperation Work Program. And that will be all for my report. And next reporter will be discussing another bilateral agreement. That will be all, and thank you.